So hello, in this we will take developmental issues and present trend in Indian economy for EPFO. We have already completed auditing, accounting and other important subjects. Playlist name is EPFO 2025. You will find everything there on the same channel. At the same time, you will find PDF on the Telegram. The name is EDU ASTRA. You can go and have a look. You will find resources for other exams as well. At the same time, important exam notifications and a lot of other things. So let's start with this developmental issue and present trend in Indian economy. What is commonly used measure of national output? Gross domestic product, that is your GDP, sum of value added across all resident producer used to track economic growth. आसान भाषा में जो गुड्स एंड सर्विसेज प्रोड्यूस विद इन जो भी कोई कंट्री है वहाँ पे एंड किसमें पर्टिकुलर टाइम पीरियड जो कि हम लेते हैं 1 ईयर, ठीक है उसमें. So that is your gross domestic product. What is real GDP versus nominal GDP? So real is inflation adjusted, nominal is current prices. Real GDP shows volume growth, nominal includes price changes. Which sector contributes the largest share to India's GDP? Recent trends, service sector. Service मतलब IT, finance, trade, transport account for the biggest share and drive modern growth. What are the three broad sectors in the economy? Primary, secondary, tertiary. Primary में कौन आता है? Agriculture. Secondary में industry, manufacturing. Tertiary में services. Then policy mixes differ by sector for employment and growth. What is the approximate growth outlook used by multilateral agencies for India in 2025? 6.5 to 7% real GDP growth. अब अलग अलग एजेंसीज के हिसाब से अलग अलग है. इंडिया रिमेन्स वन ऑफ द फास्टेस्ट ग्रोइंग लार्ज इकोनॉमीज IMF के हिसाब से. विच डोमेस्टिक डिमांड कंपोनेंट्स मोस्ट रिसेंटली सपोर्टेड इंडियाज ग्रोथ? प्राइवेट कंजप्शन एंड पब्लिक इन्वेस्टमेंट. कंजप्शन, अर्बन प्लस रूरल एंड गवर्नमेंट केपेक्स have been growth anchors. What is GVA? Gross value added. GVA is GDP minus taxes plus subsidies on product. ठीक है, सब्सिडीज़ मतलब जैसे गैस में भी आप सुनते हो सब्सिडी, या किसी भी चीज़ में प्रमोट करने के लिए हम देते हैं फर्टिलाइजर्स पे. सो दैट हैज़ टू बी एडेड. सो GDP माइनस टैक्सेस प्लस सब्सिडीज ऑन प्रोडक्ट्स. यूजफुल टू एनालाइज सेक्टोरल कंट्रीब्यूशन टू आउटपुट. व्हाट इज़ द यूजुअल इकोनॉमिक पॉलिसी रिस्पॉन्स टू हाई इन्फ्लेशन? Monetary tightening, raise interest rates and or fiscal prudence. Then central bank RBI uses repo rate and liquidity tools to control inflation. Which body sets India's monetary policy? Reserve Bank of India Monetary Policy Committee. ये डिसाइड करती है कि मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी कितना बढ़ेगा कितना नहीं बढ़ेगा, रेपो रेट क्या रहेगा क्या नहीं रहेगा. ठीक है, रेट सारे बढ़ा देंगे जिससे क्या होगा, टाइट मनी पॉलिसी हो जाएगी. मार्केट में पैसा कम रहेगा क्योंकि क्या होगा, अगर इंटरेस्ट बढ़ेंगे तो पीपल विल नॉट बाई, तो टाइट हो जाएगा. एंड अगर लूज़ करना है तो क्या करेंगे, इंटरेस्ट रेट्स वगैरह डाउन कर देंगे. उससे क्या होगा, इंटरेस्ट डाउन होगा तो पीपल विल टेक लोन और विल बाय समथिंग और दी अदर, तो उससे इकॉनमी चलती रहेगी एंड ग्रो करेगी. देन व्हाट इज CPI inflation? Consumer Price Index measures the retail inflation using a basket of goods and services. RBI targets CPI inflation band in its framework. What has been the recent trend in India's headline inflation? Moderation in headline inflation with food price volatility. Precise values vary by month. Lower food inflation and favorable supply conditions can bring CPI down. What is the fiscal deficit? The gap between government's total expenditure and its total receipts, excluding borrowing. Total expenditure कितना आप खर्च कर रहे हो and कितना आपके पास आ रहा है revenues के through. That is total receipts, excluding borrowings. So indicates borrowing requirement and fiscal sustainability. What was India's fiscal target approach in recent budget? Gradual consolidation aim to reduce deficit as percentage of GDP. तो एक इसमें हम देखते हैं परसेंटेज ऑफ GDP में बिलो 4.5 to 5% टारगेट जोन. बैलेंसेस ग्रोथ स्टिमुलस विद फिस्कल प्रूडेंस. एक्चुअल टारगेट एडजस्ट बाय ईयर. व्हाट इज नॉमिनल GDP ग्रोथ एंड व्हाई इज इट important for debt to GDP? Growth of GDP in current prices. High nominal growth reduces debt ratio automatically, helps the government manage fiscal metrics without explicit austerity. Which survey is the main official source of unemployment and labor data in India? Periodic Labor Force Survey, that is PLFS. PLFS gives unemployment rates, labor force participation and employment by sector. What is labor force participation rate? LFPR, labor force participation rate, proportion of population that is working age men that is either employed or seeking work. LFPR reveals how many are active in the labor market. Female LFPR is a policy focus. What key employment challenge faces India despite growth? Jobless growth and quality of jobs, informal, low productivity. Growth often creates fewer formal jobs relative to labor force additions. What percentage of India's workforce is in the informal sector? Approx. A large majority estimates commonly 70 to 80%. Informality affects social security coverage and work protections. Define formalization in the Indian context. Process by which informal enterprises and workers enter registered regulated framework, tax, labor, PF, ESI. Formalization improves access to credit, benefits and regulation. What is the government's flagship program for financial inclusion? Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana PMJTY. Push for universal banking access through no frills accounts and direct benefit transfer, that is DBT. What is the role of EPFO in social protection? Administers provident fund pensions, EPS and related social security for formal employees. EPFO coverage and compliance are core to retirement security for formal workers. What is poverty headcount ratio? Share of population below an official poverty line used to measure absolute poverty incidence over time. What has been the long-term trend in India's poverty rates? Significant decline over decades with notable reductions in 2011 to 23 estimates. Rapid poverty reduction driven by growth, social transfers and rural development. Why is inequality important for development policy? High inequality reduces inclusive benefits of growth and can hamper human development. Policies like progressive taxation and social spending address inequality. What policy instruments address rural distress and agricultural incomes? MSP, minimum support price, procurement, input subsidies, crop insurance, and rural credit. Mix of price support and risk management for farmers' income. What is the PM Kisan scheme? Direct income support for all small and marginal farmers, lump sum transfers, help supplement farmer income, part of current social support architecture. What is MSME and why are MSMEs important? So micro, small and medium enterprises, engines of employment, exports and local value addition. Policy focus on credit technology and market access. Example, Udyam registration, Mudra. What is Mudra and its primary objective? So Mudra is micro units development and refinance agency. Full forms are also important. Provides micro credit to small businesses. ठीक है, माइक्रो क्रेडिट देते हैं किसमें? स्मॉल बिजनेसेस को. Then focuses on entrepreneurship and financial inclusion for small enterprise. What is the production linked incentive PLI scheme? Incentives to boost domestic manufacturing in specific sectors, electronics, pharma, etc. Aims to raise investment, exports and local value chain development. What is Make in India? Government initiative to turn India into a manufacturing hub. Emphasizes ease of doing business, infrastructure and policy support. Why are exports important for India? Exports bring foreign exchange, support manufacturing and employment, and integrate India in global value chains. Export competitiveness is critical for sustainable current account. What is current account deficit? CAD. When a country's imports of goods, services and income exceeds its export. ठीक है, जो आपके क्या है इम्पोर्ट वो एक्सीड करेगा क्या आपके एक्सपोर्ट को. सो दैट इज करंट अकाउंट डेफिसिट leads to financial needs. Current account deficit can be financed by capital inflows, FDI portfolio, but high current account deficit risks external vulnerability. What are key sources of foreign capital for India? FDI, foreign direct investment, portfolio investment, external commercial borrowings, ECBs and remittances. FDI is preferred for stability, remittances. Question, current account deficit volatility. What is the significance of FDI policy reforms? Liberalize FDI attracts technology investment and jobs but requires safeguards. Sectoral FDI limits and ease of approval reforms affects inflows. What is the digital payment revolution in India? So rapid adoption of unified payment interface, mobile wallets and digital bank interfaces. UPI enabled low cost instant payments and formalization of transaction. What is UPI unified payment interface? Instant interbank transaction system by NPCI. Then major driver of retail digital payment and fintech growth. What is Jan Dhan Aadhaar Mobile Jam architecture? So convergence of bank accounts, unique ID, Aadhaar and mobile phones to deliver DBT, that is direct benefit transfer, reduce leakage in subsidy transfers and improves targeting. How does GST affect the economy? Goods and services tax unified multiple indirect taxes into a single regime, that is destination based. Then promotes formalization, simplifies compliance and affects revenue flows between center and state. What is the formal credit gap for MSMEs and how is it being addressed? So formal credit shortfall due to informality and lack of collateral addressed via credit guarantees, MSME loans and fintech. Credit guarantee schemes and digital lending aim to widen access. What is the role of microfinance in development? Small loans to low income households to support entrepreneurship and consumption smoothing. Regulation balances outreach with borrower protection. What is the National Infrastructure Pipeline, that is NIP Gati Shakti? Large public investment plan and integrated infrastructure planning platform aims to accelerate capex connectivity and reduce logistical cost. Why is logistics important for development? High logistic cost reduces competitiveness and raise consumer price. Improving roads, ports and digital logistics boost exports and manufacturing. What are the sustainable development goals? So 17 UN goals for 2030 covering poverty, health, education, environment and more. India maps national policies to sustainable development goals indicator for monitoring development. What is the ease of doing business indicator used for? Benchmark regulatory environment, processes and business friendliness. Reform single window online registration, improve rankings, attract investment. What is the significance of education quality for development? Human capital determines productivity and long-term growth. Policies like NEP, National Education Policy, aim to improve learning outcomes and skill readiness. What is Skill India? Vocational training objective, enhance employability through short-term and long-term skills training, addresses mismatch between education and labor market needs. What are public goods and why does government provide them? Non-rival, non-excludable goods, roads, national defense, markets undersupply, public goods, government provision, corrects market failure. What is the role of social safety nets in development? Protect vulnerable household from shocks and poverty. Subsidies, pension, insurance. Schemes like PM Kisan, food security and pensions ensure. What is the rural-urban divide issue in India? Differences in income, infrastructure, service and opportunities between rural and urban areas. What is urbanization development challenge? Cities require housing, sanitation, transport and jobs. Slum growth and congestion are issues. Smart city and affordable house, PMAY, are policy responses. What does PMAY stand for and aim for? Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, affordable housing for all, urban or rural. Subsidies and credit support to reduce housing shortage. How does healthcare influence economic development? So healthy workforce raises productivity and reduces fiscal burden. Investment in public health systems and insurance, Ayushman Bharat, are central. What is Ayushman Bharat? PMJAY, that is government health insurance and scheme for vulnerable households covering secondary and tertiary care, seeks to reduce catastrophic health expenses and improve access. Then what is Human Development Index? HDI composite measures health, education, standard of living developed by UNDP, used to compare broader development beyond GDP. Why is female labor force participation important? So higher female labor force participation boosts household incomes and growth. Low female labor force participation signals untapped potentials. Policies focus on safety, childcare, and flexible work. What is demographic dividend? So potential growth advantage from a large working age population. What is the challenge of youth employment in India? Matching young labor entrants with quality jobs. Many are underemployed or are in informal work. What is poverty alleviation via transfer concept? Direct cash or in-kind benefits to raise consumption and build assets. DBT reduces leakages, targeted transfer improve efficiency. What is the significance of agricultural productivity for development? Higher productivity raises rural incomes, rural poverty, and feeds urban growth. Technology, irrigation, credit, and market linkages are key. What is the Kharif and Rabi distinction? Kharif monsoon crop, rice, cotton, Rabi winter crop, wheat. Crop calendar inform procurement, MSP, and food security policy. What does Food Security Act (PDS) objective? Ensure access to subsidized food for eligible household via public distribution system, that is PDS. PDS is a core anti-poverty program with periodic reforms for targeting. What major issue affects India agriculture income? Price volatility, small landholdings, limited value addition, and market access. What is the role of cooperatives in Indian rural development? Provide credit, procurement, and marketing. Example, dairy cooperatives. What is the cooperative dairy model? Amul. So, farmer owned dairies that aggregate milk and ensure price discovery. Demonstrated large scale rural poverty reduction impact. What is the importance of irrigation and water management? Reduces crop risk, increase yield, and enables multiple cropping. Investment in canals, micro irrigation, and watershed management is policy priority. What is the relevance of climate change for development? Affects agriculture, health, water resources, and infrastructure adoption. Mitigation needed. What is India's renewable energy thrust about? Rapid deployment of solar, wind, and hybrid energy to reduce fossil dependence. What are green bonds? Debt instruments to finance environmentally beneficial projects. What is the national manufacturing policy broad aim? Raise manufacturing share of GDP and create jobs. Make in India PLI targeting high value manufacturing and export competitiveness. What is the startup ecosystem policy thrust? Ease of incorporation, tax breaks, incubators, and funding support. Startup India. Goal is innovation, job creation, export of tech enabled service. Then, how is fintech changing financial inclusion? Digital lending, payments, micro insurance, and robo advice expand services to undeserved segments. What is NBFC and its role? So, non-banking financial company provides credit and financial services outside banking systems. NBFCs are vital for SME financing and last mile credit but require regulation. What is the role of RBI as a banking regulator? Prudential supervision, lender of last resort, payment system regulator, and monetary policy ensure stability and integrity of financial security. What is NPA? That is non-performing assets. So loans whose interest or principal is overdue, commonly 90 plus days. High NPA stress banking बैलेंस शीट्स एंड क्रेडिट सप्लाई जो बैलेंस शीट को इम्पैक्ट करेगा एंड क्रेडिट सप्लाई को. क्या हाई अगर एनपीए नॉन परफॉर्मिंग एसेट है मतलब 90 प्लस डेज से ज़्यादा नहीं मिला ओवर ड्यू है. व्हाट इज इंसॉल्वेंसी एंड बैंक्रप्सी कोड? IBC objective time bound resolution of stressed firms and recovery for creditors. What is Goods and Services Tax Council? Federal body central plus states and decides GST rates and policy. Ensures coordination between central and state on indirect tax matters. What is the informal credit problem for poor household? Reliance on money lenders with high interest rates and exploitative terms. Formal credit access reduce vulnerability and foster small enterprise. What is the significance of remittances for India? Large inflow of foreign exchange and support to household consumption and savings. Remittances are a stable external financing source. What does fiscal decentralization mean? Transfer of spending and revenue responsibilities to a subnational governments, that is state or UTs. Enhance local service delivery but requires clear fiscal transfer. What is the role of Finance Commission? Recommends devolution of central resources to state and fiscal transfers. What is public debt sustainability? Capacity of government to service debt without excessive burden on future budget, determined by growth, interest rates, and primary balances. What is counter-cyclical fiscal policy? Increase spending, relaxation in downturns, and consolidate in booms to stabilize output. What is the real interest rate? Nominal interest rate. Expected inflation determines the true cost of borrowing and savers returns. What are structural reforms? So deep policy changes labor, land, product markets to improve long run productivity. Name a recent major structural reform in labor law. Consolidation of labor laws into four labor codes: wages, social security, industrial relation, or OSH. Codes simplify regulations and aim to balance flexibility with worker protection. Why does India focus on manufacturing exports? So to diversify exports, raise value added and create manufacturing jobs. What is digital public infrastructure? Shared platform Aadhaar, UPI, KYC enabling digital services at scale, lower transaction cost and fosters innovation. How to ट्रेड पॉलिसी एंड टैरिफ्स अफेक्ट डेवलपमेंट. ठीक है, कैसे अफेक्ट करता है ट्रेड पॉलिसी? प्रोटेक्ट नास्कैन इंडस्ट्रीज बट कैन रेज कंज्यूमर कॉस्ट. ट्रेड ओपननेस फॉस्टर एफिशिएंसी. व्हाट इज द ग्रीन transition policy concern for India? Shift to low carbon energy while managing development and energy access. Need to balance emissions targets with growth and energy security. What is poverty multidimensional approach? Poverty measured by health, education and living standards. MPI goes beyond income to capture deprivations. What is the significance of public investment in infrastructure? Crowds in private investment raises demand and long-term productivity. Infrastructure capex is a key fiscal tool for growth. What is trade-off between inflation and unemployment? Short-term Phillips curve suggests inverse relation in practice. Supply shocks complicate trade-off. Policy must weigh price stability against employment objectives. What is targeted welfare? Transfers and service focused on eligible vulnerable groups. Aims to improve efficiency but faces inclusion exclusion risk. How is education quality measured? Learning outcomes, enrollment, completion rates, pupil teacher ratio. Quantity of schooling alone is insufficient without learning achievement. What is urban fiscal stress? Cities with high service demands and limited revenue tools leading to under provision of services. Why is data status and statistics important for policy? Evidence-based policy relies on accurate, timely statistics, GDP, employment, poverty. Better data leads to better targeting and evaluation. What is impact evaluation and development policy? Measuring causal effect of interventions, often via RCTs or quasi-experimental methods. What role does governance and anti-corruption play in development? Better governance improves public service delivery and investment climate. Transparency and accountability mechanisms increase efficiency. What are the major short-term risks to India's economy? Global demand slowdown, trade disruptions, commodity price shocks, and domestic financial stress. Policy buffers, reserves, fiscal room, and macro-prudential tools mitigate risk. What are major development policy priorities for India now? क्या है priorities? Job creation, formalization, infrastructure, human capital, health and education, green transition, and inclusive growth. A multi-pronged approach balancing short-term demand and long-term supply reforms will be key. So that's it in this. There are also other important PDFs on the Telegram. You can go and have a look. And all the very best and thank you.